This analysis undertakes a doctoral-level examination of Sung Jin Woo's character development in solo leveling, moving beyond surface-level observations of a power fantasy to explore the complex interplay of transformation, trauma, and the philosophical implications of his unique system. We'll dissect Jin Woo's character through the lens of Jungian archetypes, trauma theory, existentialism, and the philosophical implications of his unique player system. At the outset, Jin Woo is defined by his profound weakness. Branded the world's weakest hunter, he occupies a liminal space within the hunter society, a figure of ridicule and pity. This initial portrayal embodies the Jungian shadow archetype, representing the repressed aspects of the self, the perceived inadequacies, vulnerabilities, and fears that individuals often disown. Jin Woo's E-rank status is not merely a measure of his physical or magical capabilities, it is a symbolic representation of his psychological state, a lack of self-worth, a constant fear of failure, and a deep-seated anxiety about his inability to protect his family. This pre-transformation Jin Woo is driven by necessity, not ambition. His participation in dungeon raids is not a pursuit of glory or power, but a desperate attempt to provide for his ailing mother and younger sister. This economic pressure adds another layer to his character, highlighting the socio-economic realities that often force individuals into precarious situations. His willingness to risk his life despite his weakness underscores his profound sense of responsibility and selflessness, even in the face of overwhelming fear. This selflessness is a key aspect of his character that persists throughout his transformation, albeit evolving in its manifestation. The Double Dungeon incident acts as the crucible for Jin Woo's transformation. The graphic depiction of near-death experiences, the betrayal by fellow hunters, a stark illustration of the Hobbesian state of nature, where self-preservation trumps all else, and the overwhelming sense of helplessness constitute a significant traumatic event. This experience shatters his existing self-concept, forcing him to confront his mortality and the inherent dangers of the world he inhabits. Initially, Jin Woo embodies the shadow archetype, a weak E-rank hunter, ridiculed and marginalized within the hunter society. This weakest hunter persona represents the repressed aspects of himself, the perceived inadequacies and vulnerabilities he desperately tries to overcome. The near-death experience in the Double Dungeon acts as a catalyst, triggering his transformation and the emergence of the hero archetype. However, this is not a simple transition from shadow to light. Instead, Jin Woo integrates his shadow, accepting and utilizing his past weaknesses as fuel for his relentless drive. His initial timidity and self-doubt are not erased but transmuted into strategic caution and a deep understanding of vulnerability, informing his tactical decisions throughout his journey. The system that appears after his near-death experience marks a radical shift in Jin Woo's narrative and psychological trajectory. It offers him a structured path towards self-improvement, a gamified framework for personal growth. From a Jungian perspective, the system can be interpreted as a manifestation of the collective unconscious, offering archetypal trials and challenges that facilitate individuation. The daily quests, penalties, and rewards act as symbolic trials, forcing him to confront and integrate various aspects of his psyche. The constant threat of death further emphasizes the gravity of these trials, pushing him beyond his perceived limitations. The system's mechanics, with its focus on quantifiable metrics, introduce a philosophical dimension to Jin Woo's development. It raises questions about free will versus determinism. Is Jin Woo merely a puppet of the system, following pre-programmed instructions, or does he retain agency within this structured environment? The narrative suggests a complex interplay. While the system provides a framework, Jin Woo's choices within that framework ultimately shape his destiny. His adaptation to the system, his strategic thinking, and his decisions that go beyond simply completing quests demonstrate his agency. The Casa fight is a prime example, where his strategic use of the sword and his understanding of fear not just raw power, led to victory. The initial stages of his transformation are characterized by a relentless focus on self-improvement. He diligently adheres to the system's demands, pushing himself to his physical and mental limits. This period resonates with the audience because it emphasizes the importance of hard work, discipline, and perseverance. It's a power fantasy grounded in effort, making Jin Woo's growth feel earned rather than simply bestowed. This distinguishes solo leveling from other power fantasies where characters are often granted power effortlessly. The comparison to Kirito in Sword Art Online highlights this difference. Jin Woo earns his strength through struggle, while Kirito Doiquatsu often demonstrates pre-existing or easily acquired power. Jin Woo's initial trauma in the Double Dungeon is not merely a plot device, it's a crucial lens through which to understand his subsequent development. The experience triggers a form of post-traumatic growth, characterized by positive psychological changes following adversity. Jin Woo's PTG manifests in several ways: increased personal strength and resilience, a heightened appreciation for life, the opening of new possibilities through the system, and a quasi-spiritual dimension as he grapples with his newfound power and its implications. However, it is crucial to acknowledge the potential for post-traumatic stress alongside PTG. Jin Woo exhibits signs of hypervigilance, constantly assessing threats and maintaining a controlled emotional state. His initial reluctance to form close bonds can be interpreted as a protective mechanism against further emotional pain. The recurring motif of betrayal, from the Double Dungeon to the Lizard arc, reinforces this sense of distrust and vulnerability. The Lizard arc marks a significant shift in Jin Woo's moral compass. The necessity of killing other humans, even those who posed a direct threat, begins to erode his previous sense of morality. He begins to see survival as the ultimate imperative, justifying actions that would have been unthinkable before his transformation. This is further compounded by his self-appointed role as judge and executioner, exemplified by his killing of the man who had committed sexual assault. This act, while morally justifiable in the context of the narrative, represents a significant departure from his initial selflessness and raises complex ethical questions about the nature of justice and the corrupting influence of power. Sung Jin Woo's journey in solo leveling is far more than a simple power fantasy. It is a complex tapestry woven with threads of transformation, trauma, existentialism, and philosophical inquiry. By examining his character through the lenses of Jungian archetypes, trauma theory, and philosophical discourse, we gain a deeper understanding of his multifaceted development. He begins as a weak, vulnerable individual driven by necessity, transforms into a powerful being grappling with the burden of his power, and ultimately finds meaning in self-sacrifice and the protection of humanity.